Hello and welcome back to the channel. As you see from the title, I'm going to be talking about something that I believe is worth talking about. So much is happening in the world, and stories like this just kind of melt into the background or fade into the background with all that is happening. So many things happening that this would kind of be overlooked for a number of different reasons. First of all, I'd like to thank Sister Monica for sharing this with me. I definitely want to add my 2 cents in here because there are a lot of layers to this particular situation. Right now it's being stated that, or the question is being asked, is there a shooter that is actually targeting black women in St. Louis? That's the question right now. Is there a shooter that's targeting black women in St. Louis? So then that would basically mean that the question is there a serial killer who is actually using black women as target practice? That's really what it boils down to. Anyway, I'm going to share some of the details of the story with you, and then I'll be back with my own 2 cents and my concerns. So take a listen, and I will be right back.
7 black women have been shot in St. Louis, and 2 of them were killed in the last 7 days. On Tuesday, representatives from the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and the St. Louis County Police Department held a press conference to announce that 3 recent shooting deaths are linked. 2 of the victims were black females, 16-year-old Marnui Haynes and 49-year-old Pam Abercrombie. When police were asked if a serial killer was responsible for their deaths, Major Sean Day said, "Well, until we finalize the investigation, we don't want to categorize it as that right now." Abercrombie was shot and killed shortly before midnight on September 16th, near the intersection of West Florissant and East Prairie. She was known to hang out at that corner and work as a sex worker. News 4 spoke with another sex worker in the neighborhood who knew Abercrombie. She asked that we don't reveal her identity and call her Stacy. Stacy said she and other sex workers are involved in a dangerous line of work, but she didn't think black women, and more specifically black sex workers, are being targeted. "I don't think there's a serial killer on the loose, me personally," she said. Stacy told News 4 some prostitutes contribute to the dangers they face by stealing from or antagonizing their customers. "So it's just dumb things they do, so, a lot of them, they endanger themselves," she said.
Okay, so that is what is going on in a nutshell. I thought it was kind of interesting that another sex worker actually believes that some of these women are being taken out because of their dirty dealing. She believes that some of them are doing stuff that is bringing it or causing their own death. That's pretty much what she said. Okay, I'm not saying this. This is what she said. She knows what's going on in her neighborhood. She knows the things that are happening, and she hears the talk. So there could be some validity to what she's saying, but it is not clear. I have to say this too. It is not clear that if all of these women were indeed sex workers. I don't really think, but I mean, when you look into history, many times when there were serial killers just killing off people, sometimes it was the case that they were sex workers. But to me, that doesn't make their lives any less valuable. Okay, it doesn't give the killer a right to do what he's doing. But there are 2 sides to this. It could be even more than 2 sides, but I like to deal with the natural and the spiritual. We understand that when certain things happen, and I have to say this for those of you who don't, this channel probably isn't the best because that's where I like to go. I like to kind of explain from a spiritual standpoint why things are happening. You see, the angel of death is dispatched whenever someone loses their life, whether it's something bad that they've done, as an accident or sickness or whatever the reason, old age, whatever the reason is. The Bible says that it is once appointed unto man to die, then after that the judgment. So the angel of death in these situations have been dispatched for a particular reason. And there is nothing that is happening on this planet that our Creator is not fully aware of. And so when I hear what has happened to these women, we know that on the other end of that there was someone who allowed a voice to speak to them to carry out these deeds. Again, the officials are not ready to say whether or not they believe that this is a serial killer. But when you really think about it, 7 women within 7 days, that's kind of suspicious to me, right? But I want to kind of go from the angle of those who look at black women like they're disposable anyway. Black women are looked at by a lot of people. I'm just going to say by every group of people, it seems like from a low point. You have people of other races, you have people even within our own race that do not value black women. And it's very sad indeed. And a lot of black women feel so unprotected. You even have internet guru commentators who believe or have even stated openly that they don't believe black women. They don't believe that black women have been targeted. They don't believe that there's any domestic violence. They don't believe nobody's doing all of that kind of stuff. I mean, this is what was stated. I don't really need to say the person's name. As a matter of fact, some sisters have requested, not just on my platform, but other platforms as well, that we not even say his name. And I understand why they feel this way. I totally get it. But for a man, a so-called black man, to say that there is no domestic violence against black women, that is just ludicrous. That is absurd. It is simply not true. We continue to hear story after story after story after headline after headline of black women who have lost their lives at somebody's hands. Now, again, I don't want this story to just melt in the background because we're talking about women who are sex workers. Okay? The fact that you have someone who is willing to carry out the deed, no one knows who it is at this point, but someone who is willing to carry out the deed of killing these women, it shows that there's a clear disdain for black women. And to see, it's not just killing, it's even hurting, and just the overall treatment of black women in this world is and has been horrible. I mean, look at the women on the continent of Africa. When European troops come into their area and they need to relieve themselves, they leave behind babies that in many cases have torn apart marriages, because the husbands of these black women, the black husbands, the African husbands of these black African women, are just hurt and devastated when their wives give birth to mixed race children as a result of rape from European soldiers or troops that are in the area. So, I mean, there are just story after story after story and all kinds of proof that black women are indeed abused around the world. And so I wanted to talk on this. I understand totally that when you're in a certain line of work, there are dangers. So there is some truth to what one of the sex workers said, that some of these women put themselves in these situations. There is truth to that. You cannot deny that. Okay? But I just think about the mindset that exists where a lot of people, I mean, recently there was a young man who was so angry that a black woman dared say anything to him about bumping her on an escalator, and he turns around and pushes her backwards down the escalator stairs as if her life, she could have killed herself. You know how hard escalator stairs are? She could have struck her head on the edge of one of those stairs and been gone. Thankfully, he has been arrested. But look at the dangers that a black woman faces just with living and existing in this world around people who have shown clearly that they don't like them, that they hate them, that they despise them. So I wanted to talk about this story and just come from a number of different angles, understanding that a certain line of work, of course, you subject yourself to a certain thing. It doesn't give a person a right to mistreat you because of that line of work. But I just wanted to cover this from many angles. You know, the spiritual standpoint of judgment, the natural standpoint of how people just feel a certain way about black women that actually causes them to feel fearful and unprotected. And then the moral standpoint of, this line of work produces this type of thing, but it is not clear that all of these women were sex workers. So this is horrible either way it goes. Somebody out there doesn't have or feel any value for taking these women's lives. And so to know that you have to walk around wondering, is my life of any value to the people that I am looking at as I go out into the world? That in and of itself has got to be frightening. Well, anyway, I'm done with the story, of course. As always, I invite you to leave your comments below, but keep it tight and keep it right. But until next time. We hope you liked today's topic. Please leave your comments below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, share it like this video, and with that, we're out. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.